Yo guys, what's up? Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Just gotta say a few things. Of course, I've been trying to kind of avoid the whole, tribute to, passing artists thing. I think there's, plenty of music stations here on YouTube, and I'm just one of them. And I think the other ones do a great job of covering that sort of thing. But when it's someone that you really dig, that you can't just let it go by. And that would be, of course, David Crosby passing January 18th, 2023. And there's also been a couple other passings, one just today and one the week prior. So let's just start out. First, obviously, rest in peace with these guys. Just today, Philadelphia legend Jerry Blavat, also known as the Geeter with the Heater. He was huge back in like the 50s. Might even got to start earlier than that, but I know he was big 50s into the early 60s guy, real into doo-wop, and just sort of a hottest DJ in town in Philly for a decade or more, who I don't think ever stopped having a presence as an entertainer in the Philly area. Even, I'm down at the Jersey Shore now, not in Philadelphia. He's all over, the area in the summertime, which of course was a few months ago, now that it's January. But you get my point. This guy has maintained a career based on being basically a walking encyclopedia, and of course a fun and entertaining guy, life of the party kind of guy. Was at a function with him once about maybe, about 8 years ago, where he was like the host at a sort of gala thing at the Philadelphia Art Museum. And, it was just like I said, the life of the party kind of guy. He's most recently had a weekly show on WXPN College Channel in Philly. It's a pretty awesome, private or publicly funded channel, so no commercials and things. Anyway, he had a weekly thing on there, and prior to that, he had a weekly thing, I think, on like the Oldies channel up in Philly. He'll be missed by a lot of people, more of my mom's generation, obviously. I remember growing up, she had in the closet this, 12-inch album. It said, "For Young Teenagers Only," Jerry Blavat. I think he was like standing on a sign in the middle of Broad Street with City Hall behind him. Anyway, just passing, rest in peace to Jerry Blavat. Of course, back on the 10th, Jeff Beck passing away. I can't say I'm the biggest Jeff Beck fan. I had a couple of his albums back in the day, on cassette. My cassettes are long gone, but played them a few times. Wasn't something I listened to a lot. But I did eventually get to see him live 2010, and then I think the following year, 2011. Hard to describe to people that don't know anything about Jeff Beck about how great his concerts were. Just amazing. You just sit there amazed at what you're listening to. He's holding a guitar, but it sounds like an orchestra sometimes. It sounds like a keyboard sometimes. It sounds like anything but a guitar. And then, of course, he just rocks it sometimes. But most of the show, he's just making some sounds you've never heard out of the instrument. Great to see him those two times. Really wanted to catch him when he was with Brian Wilson. I didn't. And just, been off my radar the last few years. He's been around, but not too close to me. Anyhow, he'll be missed. Awesome. One of the best guitarists ever, but so unconventional. He was just never going to be super commercially successful anyway. But, a lot of great talent just, goes that way. Of course, got to start with Rod Stewart and Jeff Beck Group. Well, Stewart got to start with Jeff. Of course, the Yardbirds. Member of the Yardbirds for a while. It's kind of ironic. I just picked this up. Not that this is Jeff Beck specifically, but there's some Jeff Beck related material on this. I just picked this up 2 days before he passed away. I do have a couple of the Rod Stewart albums, but they're 70s stuff, not Jeff Beck related, so that was just kind of funky coincidence there. He played on some of the What God Wants, Roger Waters' best album, a couple of the songs on there. So easy to tell when he's the guitarist, because I think he's only, like I said, on 2 or 3 songs on that album. Stands out. Brilliant work there. And then I also remember he was back with Rod for a tour in '84, and I remember hearing on the radio that Jeff Beck dropped off the tour right as it got to Philly. That was like a big news. People were looking forward to seeing him again with Rod. Anyhow, another, big loss there in music world, rock there specifically. Jerry Blavat, more of the doo-wop era. And last but not least, of course, like I said, David Crosby, not a shocker when you're in your 80s. I think he was 81. Another just giant. He passed on January 18th. Member of the Byrds, of course. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, with or without Young. Solo career. And let's not forget, the Crosby Nash. I think they had at least 3 albums that I have from them. And then I think they put one out in 2008 or so. So there's at least 4 albums by those two. Definitely the wild card member of that trio. Of course, you had Neil in and out, but of the 3 other guys, David was definitely your sort of rebel among those 3. There's just no denying the magic of those Crosby, Stills, and Nash albums. Of course, you got the debut, super solid, breakout. One of the best albums ever, in my opinion, by anyone. Deja Vu, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Insanely, pretty much like a perfect record, right? Gotta say it. Just incredible harmonies. Great songsmanship, just the songwriting on these albums are insane. And then, more recently, hell is it? Someone gave me, and I didn't even realize I had it on vinyl, but now I kind of remember that I do, the CSN album from '77. I listened to it here and there because I got it on used vinyl maybe 6 or 8 years ago. Then I picked it up recently on CD. Actually, someone gave me, a free copy with no case or nothing. Put it on while I was rearranging the shelves, so I had the whole album straight through. I couldn't believe how great this album is. This is right up there with their first 2 albums, in my opinion. It is awesome. Of course, its stylings are a little different. We're 77, so a few years later than the first 2. But this is a great album. I went out and bought it, off eBay to get the case and cover and all. Like I said, Wind on the Water by Crosby, Nash, another great album. That album, I'm not going to say everything he did with Nash was awesome, but Wind on the Water, that album is sensational. Get that one. What else can I say about these guys? I mean, what made CSN like so just like one in a million, really, was that you had 3 guys from 3 different bands kind of joined in the fact, or unified by the fact, that they were all trying to break out of what they felt were sort of constricting, limiting situations, basically pop bands. Buffalo Springfield, I don't know if I would say was pop, but I guess there were some constraints being in a band. The Hollies, definitely a sort of pop-oriented rock band, and same with the Byrds to a degree. So they all had that in common, leaving those situations. They all, of course, the first time they harmonized, it was magic. I've heard Nash tell that story more than once. But I think what makes them so special, though, is that they were all able to form and express their own sort of unique style within Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They're obviously were a group, but they really just when 4 and 20 and Sweet Judy Blue Eyes is playing, it's you could tell they're Stephen Stills songs, even though of course they're CSN. Our House, Cathedral, they're Graham Nash songs, but they're Crosby, Stills, and Nash. So with David, I would say, there's Guinevere, Almost Cut My Hair, distinctly Crosby. Yet, really, when you hear them do those solo, they don't sound as good. Right? It's got to be Crosby and Nash behind them to really sound good. I can't really think of another time ever, at any point in the history of rock, where 3 or 4 or whatever individuals left separate projects, even if it was a one-off project, not forming a whole new permanent band like these guys were. Even a one-off project where there was this kind of magic. Just think about that for a second. Really, no one compares. Maybe if you guys can make some suggestions, if you think there have been. I really can't think of guys that left pretty popular bands to form another band and be way more popular than the 3 bands they left. But they were able to do it, and really, I guess, just the galaxy and everything, just bringing things together at just the right time, right place, and so forth. Separately, so talented and so amazing, and yet collectively, so great. When you're as good as they are separately and solo-wise, that's really saying something to say that as a band they were so much better. But definitely true. So David Crosby, you know, I got to see him in '91. That's where this ratty old shirt's from. '91 Atlantic City, Trump. I had a little too much to drink at that show, but I do remember good amounts of it. Good show, you know, from what I recall. We had good seats, so the songs that I was in my seat for, yeah, great. But just as good, maybe even a little better, even better seats. 2008, I think it was, I saw Crosby Nash at a pretty relatively small theater, seats about 1,200. I think I had eighth or 10th row for that. Awesome. Sitting next to Pierre Robert from WMMR. Well, he was a row across from me, but I ended up sitting next to him for a little while. Great performance there. They were able to do a couple songs from the Wind on the Water, like some deep cuts on there. They started out with The Lee Shore. Fantastic. We will miss David Crosby, leaving us behind a great body of work and some solo stuff I've yet to delve into that I'm looking forward to maybe getting soon. So just wanted to say my little piece with these 3 passings, you know, within almost a week of each other. And that's about all. See you guys next on hopefully a happier episode coming up soon. Peace out.